So we recently had someone come into our field that has been given a diagnosis of irritable bowel syndrome. And we wanted to talk about it today from our point of view and our perspective versus the traditional sort of medical perspective and path on it.
First of all, hi, I'm Anne.
And I'm Steve. We are somatic healers with spirit. So we help people move into synergy with the body, the mind, emotions, their spiritual side to really look at a whole health picture that goes beyond just the physical level to create balance from within.
So, something that I find really fascinating about this is from an emotional point of view or the psychological point of view, it's like an irritable bowel is actually something that's part of the healing journey. I think that in traditional ways of looking at it, it's like something is wrong or something is an issue. But from a body standpoint, it's actually something has been successfully concluded or healed internally, emotionally, and psychologically.
It's interesting to me too. The place that I'm getting to begin is this idea of diagnosing something, and right away it boxes in like what a person's experiencing. So right away, if we put it in this category of IBS, it's like that already is so focused in that we're not looking at the overall perspective of the person's situation. And that's what works me up, I guess, when people go through that process is it can feel helpful in the moment because you're like, oh, this is something I can chew on. I feel like I have an answer. And yet at the same time, it can really box in the energy story. And we might miss like a whole set of parameters that's going on that's contributing to what the body's presenting.
Yeah, I mean, I really see it as something that it gives a lens. Like we talk a lot about it's helpful when to use the body as a lens to understand something deeper going on. But I think a lot of times we see things where it just that can create a stop instead of a start, instead of a portal into an exploration of, okay, so I'm going to investigate why this part of my body is communicating. It's more of like, oh, I have my answer. Now I can just end here. Now I will just treat this one part rather than seeing a bigger story at play.
Exactly. Like when we zoom out, this is part of the digestive system, which is a massive system in the body. It includes like the mouth, the pharynx, the throat, like the stomach. I mean, it includes the intestines. Like it's huge. So let's just zoom out for a second. I'm getting a ping of just looking at it as part of the digestive system. And oftentimes, when people are experiencing digestive issues, it indicates that they can't digest something. It actually is really that simple. So, Anne and I love to look at the metaphors of things. So, if you can't digest something, there's something, a situation, an experience, something in your field that you can't digest, that you're having a hard time processing or dealing with. And most often, it also is tied to anger. Like there's usually a fiery, angry energy involved when we have digestive issues.
Yeah, I mean, because when someone is experiencing digestion either from the top or the bottom, I feel like it usually includes some sort of inflammation or pain or heat. And we always look at those things as, um, I see them as colors almost like this redness, and then relate that back to anger as a primary emotion. There's a lot of flavors of anger, one being frustration. A lot of people don't want to associate with anger per se, but they can be very frustrated or bitter or resentful. Doesn't have to be rage, but it can be.
Mhm. Yeah, and a lot of times people aren't taught how to like interface with these emotions in a way that actually can feel healthy. So oftentimes we want to avoid them, tamp them down, and repress them. But really, it just causes all this internal stress and resistance that can manifest as physical symptoms as one aspect. And it's interesting because the lower body, the lower part of the digestion or the organs down there, when we look from an energetic standpoint, they really have a close biological tie to territory and identity. So when we look at the bigger story, if someone's dealing with digestive issues more so in the bowels, we're looking to what's going on in the territory, meaning the greater environment. What kind of situations are you finding yourself in again and again that are maybe stirring up some anger or causing you to question, like, what is my place in this? How do I interface within this?
Yeah, you just said something that pinged me of what am I facing again and again, and I think that's important here to call out of that's why things can happen regularly or they start to create like a pattern because it's this pattern in your life that you're constantly facing. And how many times does that come up in a day, in a week? And then all of a sudden, if you start to tie that into how often you aren't feeling well, it starts to make a little bit more sense as to why this recurs, even though it can also be tied to something that has completed. But
Right.
how many times is it getting started and then has to complete?
Right. Yeah, it's interesting too because there's the process of elimination involved in this as well. And we could go off on a whole tangent about this because we're very passionate about it, but it's really indicating that something's occurring in one's life that they want to try to get rid of, but they're like, and it's almost like they can't fully assimilate and absorb it because it's uncomfortable or triggering or whatever it is. So they just want to like eliminate it as quick as possible. And the body responds to that. It's like, okay, then we won't fully absorb this and it'll come out as diarrhea, for example.
Yeah. Well, another thing that we talk a lot about is always bringing it. So it can very much be about the environment or something happening, right? But I think that even a deeper layer is about bringing it back to the self. We always talk about how we imagine like our inside, I say there's always like millions of little parts of ourselves. And so I always like to then bring it even closer and seeing just like what part of the self are you trying to eliminate that makes you so uncomfortable or that brings shame or guilt or fear or just feels like disturbed inside and then you want to eliminate and so your body is quite literally showing you like this elimination, this urgency to eliminate it out of you every time that it starts to get poked at or brought to the surface.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I love that you took it there because the way that you and I see things is like we get into it with people of what's going on, obviously, in your body and environment in which you're interfacing with because it's a mirror to what's going on inside. So, for example, if you're in an environment where there's a like it's stirring up a lot of anger for you, it's like, well, what are we angry about actually? And in this case, it's pointing to feelings of like feeling limited or not really like understanding one's self or place within like a family unit, for example. And so they might be angry actually because they don't know themselves and feel good about themselves or know how to stand up for themselves, for example, like where Where's my place here? And so that creates an internalized anger that these external environmental events are just triggering it and bringing it up because it's like, okay, the body is your ally. Even through these uncomfortable symptoms, it's like it's trying to get your attention, like, hey, there's work to be done here. We want to bring more acceptance to who we are. We want you to come in to yourself and actually like get to know who this person is on a deeper level so that you can express it in your environment.
Yeah, and what came through as you were talking about that is what the power of that, about the power of taking it, utilizing your environment, but then turning it as a mirror of like these parts of myself, I feel is a great way of getting out of this victim mode or feeling boxed in or limited because of your situation. It's like, well, a person may say, well, this is my reality. This is where I'm living. This is who's around me. And it can be really easy to be like, well, then what am I supposed to do? Like, I can't get away from this person, or I can't get out of this situation because of a myriad of issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
Financial things or age or just your life
Right.
circumstances. So then that limits you to feeling like, well, then I guess I am just stuck like this, rather than seeing it as like, okay, I'm just going to use my environment to help sh like a big spotlight shine on a part of me that needs some attention. Suddenly you can reclaim that power and start to work with that part of yourself and offer it what it needs, what it's looking for, and find some peace and resolution from within so that your body can rebalance and you're not stuck in these constant situations.
Right, because the roots of the issue here, it's not going to just go away. There's something here that it wants to actually bring you into because even if like the symptom were to resolve, if we just look at like the underlying essence of it, if it's like anger in the territory because I don't know my place in this, that doesn't just go away necessarily. Like that lesson will kind of just divert itself. Like even if you were to change environments, it can easily still like be remembered within the body, within the cells of your body. And it's like you can't just go around it, or I should say, you can go around it. Most of us do that. But when you go around it, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, it's just diverting into something else and it will come back again in the same, what is it? Like same story, different setup or something where
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I've been here before because I haven't resolved the essence underneath.
Yeah, because I
It's
mean,
like,
I've just like thinking about people I've worked with, it's like people have removed themselves from like hostile environments and yet they're still dealing with the issue, right?
yeah,
It's like they're no longer in that environment and yet their nervous system, it's like holding on to it and it's like still in that stressful state or like holding on to the past, which is like, I mean, very understandable when situations are rough and tough to deal with. But it's like, that's kind of the empowerment part that you were talking about is like, well, but the body's trying to actually help you like move into something new, not to
yeah,
like, not to disregard it. It's like it's very real what happened, but it's like, can we create something new with it that actually feels expansive for you, that actually feels nourishing for you, safe, where you feel at ease being who you are?
yeah. Well, and something that came up when you were talking is, it's like when the nervous system is very much in a state that doesn't feel safe, it's in a fight or flight situation, it can't get into the healing
Right.
that it needs. And so it can be totally necessary to remove oneself from certain environments or situations that maybe has the nervous system on such high alert that it can't reach a certain phase of relaxation,
Right.
which is, like understandable. And but then that goes with your point of, but then when that happens, why is the body still reacting in a way? Because that deeper pattern hasn't been fully looked at and faced
Mhm.
and loved on and found peace within.
And that's why you and I get worked up when the sort of directive is to just take a medication for a set amount of time and we'll see how you are doing. That should last about 6 months. And it's like, well, what about beyond that? What
Well,
do
what
we
happens next time?
exactly? It's
It's
like you're,
not it,
go ahead.
it's not that it's wrong or that it's not helpful. It's just it's almost like I see it as like the stabilization time of like, okay, so you might need some assistance so that you
Hmm.
can like live life and find like a rebalance. I can get myself into a certain amount of space and time where I feel comfortable to then face. It's not like that's what I was
Yeah.
getting at before. It's not the end point, it's the starting. It's the open door into, okay, I have more things to address and look at, not, okay, I just found one answer. Now I'm just going to stop here.
Yeah. And it's interesting because with digestion, like I was saying earlier, it often points to anger, like the emotion of anger, which can look a myriad of ways, like frustration, for example, rage. Like there's different ways it can express itself, but a lot of us don't know how to actually interface with it. First of all, it's not a negative emotion. It drives me crazy when I hear that. It is an emotion. We're supposed to and designed to feel it. We're designed to feel all emotions, and anger is on that spectrum. And so it's interesting because anger oftentimes, like, we just don't know what to do with it. So we either like, blah, like throw it on to someone in our path, or we just like internalize it and stew. And both cases are like have their issues, right? And so this is also about what is the purpose of this anger? Anger has a purpose. It's transformative, it's fiery, it's here to alchemize and create with you. Like that's
Yeah.
the point of it. So if you think about like witnessing something that makes you angry, like just imagine someone being treated unfairly, that and you see that and it makes you angry. It's like, well, why are you angry? It's like, well, because I care about equality, right? And so it shows you what you care about, and it actually, like, when you work with it and create with it, you can create like passion, for example, or it could inspire you into an aligned action.
Yeah. You're reminding me of a conversation that we had about when I was talking about the embodiment of anger being like adjacent to joy and passion. It's like one
Like
thing
notch.
different,
Yeah.
because it was like anger is back up and wide in the embodiment story, and then the other one, joy, is like forward, wide, up. It's like the same. So we were talking about how it's so close.
Well, it's nuanced. It's
Yeah.
very like you can stay in the anger and like stir, like stew on it and like cast it around to people, but like just full transparency, that's not constructive. It's not healthy to even like operate where you're just like throwing it at someone like aggressively. Who wants to be around that? And then also you tend to feel bad that you did that, right? So it's more about like it really is about like a level of emotional awareness and emotional intelligence that is like the nuanced difference of like you can feel the anger arising, and rather than like exploding or like avoiding pushing it down, you're willing to actually just sit with it and be with it. You can work with the body with that. That's what we help people do. Like you can feel it, honor it, like feel it in your system, and then actually do something with it. Like it transforms into something else when we just allow ourselves to actually feel it. Like
Yeah.
more often than not, just letting yourself sit in it or express it with yourself will just help it move.
I think that I think it's one of the emotions that can be the stickiest for people. And that was for me, my definitely of always feeling like it was wrong or that you shouldn't be or whatever. And it's just acknowledging it's just really uncomfortable to feel it. I mean,
Yeah,
that's the truth of it. But it doesn't do anyone any good, specifically the person experiencing, not to just fully feel it. And basically, the whole point is that the body, in a myriad of different ways, is going to let you know that it needs to be faced, not just trying to eliminate it as quickly as possible.
right. Yeah, because again, just going back to IBS, it's like the energy's expressing the crap that we can't, like, that we experience on a regular basis that we just don't want to like process or absorb fully. So, I mean, it's like these like crappy situations that like keep happening and we don't want to absorb it or process it. And I get that. It's like just a biological response to it. But then there's the point of, okay, so do I want to reside in that type of dynamic with that energy? Like, for example, if you can't leave that environment, right? It's like, how do I want to interface with what's happening here if I can't remove myself? And that's where the transformative power of like the fiery energy comes in. It's like it's making you angry because it wants you to do something about it.
Yeah,
You know, it's like it wants to like spur you into action, but again, from a place of integrity, not from a place of like causing harm, for
right.
example. And why is it doing that? It's like so you can create change within yourself to like have a more harmonious existence. And that's what's really cool about it. I mean, that's no one's talking about that. And I think that that's what's really powerful about it though is your body's just basically the messenger for these things happening of your experiences, and it's a mirror and a partner through that process. And when you can partner with it and get its messages and put it into practice as well from an embodied place, it's like the symptoms go away, you just feel better about yourself overall, like things ease up and lighten. I mean, we see it all the time with people we work with, and it's just awesome to be like
Yeah,
it in a way. It's like it simplifies like what's actually necessary for like living, for like being in a harmonious state. It's like we often are like pulled to things outside of ourselves, right? Like, oh, you need this thing, you need these supplements, you need this treatment, blah 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 blah. But it's like this is all about like, well, it's naturally occurring within you, and you can actually like get to a place where you can work and create with it. And that's what's
mm,
amazing about it. I mean, it's a skill you learn, but it's like you're super self-sufficient then, and also like really centered within yourself. And that to me is like where a healthy well-being stems from, right? That's the foundation, is like being centered in yourself and appreciating yourself and loving yourself, which means accepting things that bother you, accepting parts of yourself that might feel sticky, right?
what I've experienced personally and what I've seen for others is that it creates a different relationship with their body of instead of being afraid or feeling annoyed at it or feeling limited,
Yeah.
a victim of it, it more so starts to begin this relationship of awe and this like, oh my gosh, it's actually doing what it's exactly designed to do. And isn't that the coolest thing? And it actually helped me get to a place that I was looking to get to, but I didn't know how to get there. And I thought my body was stopping me. And really, it was trying to, like, it was trying to get me there all along. And I just got distracted because I'm trying to fix something, and your body is like, no, you don't need to fix that thing. You need to address,
Yeah. Well, it's
know.
interesting because the you and I really view the body as like a personal development tool. Like it's a partner on your team for your own growth and development. And so when we like avoid or want to like push away all the symptoms and like eliminate them, there's so much opportunity being missed. And more often than not, like the deep discomfort, the deep conflict, it's still going to be there unaddressed, creating like a all kinds of stuff under the surface. Cool. Well, I really enjoyed this conversation and getting to just show people and talk about our point of view on a physical issue that's arising within the body. And if you enjoyed this or have any questions, feel free to reach out. You can reach us on our website. You can comment. Maybe if there's something else you want us to talk about or get into, give us an idea. We'd love to hear about it.
All right, until next time.
All right. Bye bye, everyone.